That's Mark Malmcar, Master Model Railroader, and he will talk to us about airbrushing, and then did we get it set up outside?
Yeah.
We have.
I think we can run it, yeah.
We have the possibility, hopefully we can go outside and try your hand at airbrushing.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't have 45 boxcars to do. But I'll demonstrate it and talk about it and show you how.
Well, Steve, would you pull your truck up and we could use it? You need some graffiti on the side of it, you know.
I didn't bring that much paint.
It's a small truck.
Okay.
Just a few lines on it.
They just do a fire thing, you know.
There, you want to pass that out?
All right, first thing we need to talk about is the airbrush. And the most typical one for a beginner is, I'll take this apart. What they call, let's see what I got, I look at my own notes. A siphon feed. Okay, that's what this is, a siphon feed. You put the paint in a little cup and you screw it to the bottom of the airbrush, and you plug it in to the air compressor and you push it down on the nozzle and it squirts out. It siphons up. There is another kind that I call a gravity feed. It's got a little cup on it. Various places. This one's on the side. A lot of them are on the top. You put the paint in there, and I think I've only used this once in 24, 25 years. I'm afraid if I tip it over, oh, there goes all the paint.
Yeah.
So I'm a little nervous, but the professional guys use it. It works. They're a little more expensive generally. About here, different tip sizes. I got let me get this out. My original airbrush, well, I had two. My original airbrush was a Badger 350, and that came with extra all sorts of stuff. I got extra tips, wide tips, narrow tips, medium tips. I tried them years ago. I put the medium tip in, and I've used it for like 20 years. But you can go real fine with narrow lines. You could almost put pinstripes on the car if it's O scale. But anyway, they have a lot of different things in it. And there's single action and dual action. And basically single action is the most common, the cheapies. You push down on it, it mixes air and paint at the same time. The dual action, you can push down part way and it'll pull out air. So you can get the air flowing, then you push down a little more and it'll pull the paint out. I've never used a dual action paintbrush. I've used a dual action car painter before, but anyway, that's beside the point. Talk about expense. You can spend $200–300 on one. I broke one. This little dude here. My good airbrush. This thing sticks underneath here. It's a siphon feed, and I dropped it off the table once, and it broke this plastic thing. Right? I don't know if you can see it, but it got a split in it right there.
Cap?
Yeah, the cap split. Got everything else in the kit for $75–80 is good, but you can't replace that cap by itself. So I had to buy a new airbrush. That leaked paint. I used it for a couple of years that way, leaking paint all over my hands and everything. So I went and bought a replacement just for this clinic, $18.
Yeah, technology.
And I used it once, so it doesn't take a lot of money to get started in this. See what else is on my notes here. Compressor hoses, okay. I have a fitting that goes right into my air compressor, like that, and it plugs into here. I've got this is a pressure gauge and a water trap, and you can dial it in to whatever you want. and that's pretty nice. There is a way, there's this deal you can put on the top of a can of compressed air if you don't have an air compressor. And then you can unscrew it and let the air out and spray with it. It doesn't last too long. The other problem, it tends to freeze up on you. But the best thing to do that is put your can in a pan of water.
Warm water.
Warm water, yeah, and it'll prevent that from happening. But so you don't need a big air compressor to get started. But once you get to working with one of these, it's not quite good enough. You go to the big things. Okay. Spray booth, yeah. It works well. Exhaust fan needed for volume work if you're going to put 25 or 30 cars through. Spraying outside works well in warm weather. Avoid cold weather. Avoid humid weather. It changes the paint, the adherence of the paint. You may need a dehumidifier in a paint room if you're going to be inside with a lot of humidity. I use the garage in the summertime. Once in a while I've done it in the wintertime, but I don't have a furnace there. And so I really don't.
It's uncomfortable.
I don't expect to
Yeah,
do
it's
that.
cold.
I gotta tell you funny though. I plug in my heater. I got a room size heater. It takes about 3 hours to heat it in my double garage to where it's comfortable. And then I plug in the air compressor and I start painting, and all of a sudden this little gauge goes down to 0. And what the heck is wrong? I go over to the fuse box, it tripped the circuit breaker. I found out pretty easy that my heater and my air compressor do not work at the same time. So I get ready to paint, I unplug the heater, and then I can run the air compressor fine. So. Okay, let's see if there's anything else I want to talk about up here. Nope, I guess not.
Hey, Mark?
Any questions? Yeah.
So, I was taking pictures back there, I may have missed it, but do you use single action or double action airbrush?
I use single action. Professional airbrush painters use dual action because they got more control over different things. I've never used one, so I don't know if it benefit me or not. I just didn't feel like spending 125 bucks for the air gun.
Right.
Harbor Freight is a good source. They have the dual action, gravity fed for 26 bucks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it comes with a, I think a 0.3 millimeter tip. They have another one's 0.5, which is the medium.
Yeah.
Air hoses, compressor for 99 bucks.
Yeah.
Harbor Freight's good deal.
Pressure gauges, that's all there.
Yeah.
Well, there.
All that stuff. By the way, I think the difference between the two is that the double action moves your
You can control the amount of paint.
it controls the pin, or what do you call it,
Needle
the
valve.
needle valve between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, with the standard one or single, you have to turn that in back.
Turn it in, yeah, to get the best break, yeah.
Is there anybody here that's airbrushed besides Mark and myself?
Okay.
Well, if you have something to add to this, I mean, Mark
We
is,
do.
you welcome comments, don't you?
Sure.
Yeah, anybody?
So I use a pressure tank, a 5-gallon pressure tank, and I charge it first with the power pal, just like you've got there on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm shooting, there's nothing but the hiss of the gun.
Okay.
There's no noise,
Yeah.
and so, and it cost me very little
Yeah.
to do it that way. I knew one guy down in California that used an old car tire
I've heard of that.
as a pressure tank.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here to tell you, when I started airbrushing, I used a spare tire in my 1950 Dodge pickup.
There you go.
And blow it up to like 80 pounds or some silly thing. Yeah, and it worked. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, moisture traps or things like that, but it worked. But you learn and then you build your.
I've just gotten used to the air compressor going. I've painted cars for years, and I worked in a manufacturing company where I was the guy in the paint room, so I can block it out. So.
One other thing I was gonna say, that from my work, I have collected a lot of junk, and one of the things I have is Northern pressure regulators. And if anybody's interested in something like that, I'll bring some in.
Northern,
See if they're,
What is it, Ron?
it's a pressure regulator.
Okay.
They're small, usually with about maybe 1/4 inch pins or something like that. So, and I may even have some filters. This stuff has been put away for 20 years.
you can generally find plumbing fittings that'll interchange, or maybe
Oh, yeah.
you gang several of them together to get it reduced down or whatever it
I
takes.
have a ton of 1/4 inch fittings. But if you're interested, I'll bring some of the stuff in.
If you're in the market for an airbrush and you don't know what to do, I would advise you to look at Badger. And the reason why is their customer support is second to none. They will repair any Badger airbrush dates back for years. You send it in and you get it repaired or a new one.
When I volunteered for this clinic, I checked on Walters to buy me another Badger, and every model of Badger except the dual action, big expensive ones, were out of stock.
Yeah, they're popular. But there's a company called US Airbrush Supply. I'll put that in the newsletter and a link to it. It's a very good place to buy airbrush and paint, including Badger, Model Flex, and so forth, at good prices. And they have a sale once a year.
And they honor the NMRA discount.
And they do honor the NMRA discount, right, yeah. Which you can laugh at, but gosh darn, that's sales tax or shipping or whatever you wanna look at, so it's better than.
Okay.
Are you gonna talk about cleaning the guns?
Yes.
Okay.
Come, we'll talk about that outside. So we'll actually demonstrate.
And you guys know that I'm a proponent of weathering. And all you need is a single action airbrush, an inexpensive Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong, I mean, you know, if it fails.
Right.
And an air supply, right?
Mhm.
And you can kind of lightly airbrush a little bit of mud and grime on the bottom of your cars, if nothing else, so it looks like they've been going
It
down.
lasts,
the
if you dilute your paint down, it'll last better than chalks will. I don't know about pan pastels. I've got to try them one of these days. Anyway,
Yeah,
Oh, you talk about weathering cars, I thought you just yourself were weathering.
I weather myself too.
Dave,
We have a small compressor, a couple of them at the club, and the first time I've ever seen this, maybe somebody else has. Instead of for the regulator, they've got a bleed port with a needle valve coming off the fitting on the compressor itself. And so you close it and you get whatever pressure is, you can back that needle valve in now, then it just exhausts it to get the pressure at your,
Oh,
so you could actually build one very easily.
yeah.
okay, let's get into paints.
Airbrushing does not have to be intimidating, guys. It's really not. You just have to take the plunge and buy an inexpensive one and start.
There's basically two types of paint: acrylic, which is water-based, or solvent-based. Some of the newer acrylics are solvent-based, just a different formula than enamel. They're getting better. Use a source for railroad or military colors, and I say that because you got more options. If you go the route, like I thought, oh great, store, what's the book rack? The book rack in Oak Harbor, I thought, oh god, they got Tamiya paints. I went in there, oh, it's all water-based acrylic paint for cars. You know, fine, yeah, they got hot rod pink and coral red and stuff, but it won't work. So I would stick with military colors. They got a lot of choices, or railroad colors. Automotive colors are usually too bright. Enamel is a solvent-based paint. They're getting harder to find. There are newer acrylic enamels work well, and I don't know the difference in the formula, but I'd like to go through some history of some paint. This first one is Flocal. It was the model railroad standard for decades. I don't know how long. I used it. A little history. This is my last bottle of Pullman Green. It hasn't been opened for 10 years. I've used it once. And I need to shake it and stir it real good because I've got 12 old Pullman cars that I need to repaint and get the letterboard off and re-decal. And I went through all my passenger cars, and I figured these are the ones in 1950 to 55 that still wore the Pullman Green paint. So I'm going to do that as soon as I can after this clinic while it's still warm. I'm going to come in the garage and do them all 10 or 12 of them at one shot. I'm gonna use that Pullman green before it disappears. Yeah,
Just quickly, Local and Scale Coat 1 are lacquers, not enamels.
okay. Well, on their bottle, they don't really tell
It's
you.
really hard to find lacquer.
Yeah, it's hard to find the enamel, or the thinner too.
Yeah.
About 5 years ago, I talked to, maybe even 7 or 8, I talked to one of the guys in our club back in Nebraska. I said, anybody got any Flocal thinner, or Diasol, I think they called it? He says, yeah. He says, I got some, I'll just give it to you, half a quart. So I stuck it out on my desk, on my shop bench, thanks for the word. Senility's creeping in, Alzheimer's. Anyway, I put it on the bench, and I didn't pay attention to it, it was on a towel. And one day, about 2 months later, I looked, that towel was wet. I picked it up, the can was empty, there was a hole poked in the bottom. It all leaked out. There was my quart. However, some old painter, modeler said you could use, what do they do for nail polish remover? Acetone. Acetone. You can use acetone with Focal. I've tried it, it works. A little hint right now, if I don't tell you later, don't save the paint. I tried to save half a jar of paint, and when I got back to it, it was all dissolved. It separated. It's some rough stuff in there, globs. It won't save with acetone, but it will thin it down to where you can paint with it and save the Focal. So in the next week or so, I'm going to save my Focal. Scale Coat 1 and 2 in lacquer, I guess he says. It's also obsolete. 1 is for brass, 2 is for plastic. And I don't know why they left. I used Model Master for years, both enamel and acrylic. I like them. It's also obsolete. And a great selection of color. Testers enamel, I only use it for brushing. I think there's a limited selection of colors in it. It's great for the model car trade, but I use it for my interiors and stuff, but nothing for the outside of the car. Tamiya acrylic, excellent paint. There's 2 different varieties. I use the one that's good for modeling. It's not painting cars and Warhammer figures and stuff like this, you know. True Color is a solvent-based acrylic. It's an excellent paint. They have an excellent selection of colors. I was going to bring a bottle of that to paint. I got 2 cars up here to paint. And one is the True Color is a little bit lighter paint. Oh shoot, I should be poking the button here. Here we go. Okay, there's the Scale Coat. Shouldn't be talking so much. There's the Model Master. I really like that. I got a little bit of it left. And there's the testers. The Tamiya. Yeah. And there's the True Color. And that little jar on the left there, the blue, is a little bit lighter. It's Missouri Pacific Blue. And I was going to paint one of my box cars the lighter color because it was old, thinking it was looks faded paint. And then I got Scale Coat for Royal Blue for the other one. It's a darker blue for the newer box car. And I left the True Color paint on the bench at home.
Hopefully it doesn't have a hole in the bottom.
No, hope not. Yeah. I'll be disappointed. Okay, the last one is this Vallejo, and I've used it. They said there's airbrush thinner. I've used it once with an airbrush, but I've got several different colors. It's sky gray, ochre for interiors, and this one is it's a military color. They call it German brown black. And I use that for roof, tar paper roof, to give it an aged look. I really like that stuff. So I haven't used it for spray painting much, but I use it for brushing for quite a bit. Yeah.
You know, on the Vallejo paint, that's the model color, and they also have model air, which is airbrush ready. And model color can be airbrushed, but you need to thin it, which ours has a thinner there.
I just don't have much experience with it.
The model air is ready to go, and read many good reports about it, so Hobby Lobby carries it too, by the way.
And then there's the old rattle can. If you can find the right color, this is close to an interior beige that I use in my passenger cars. The rattle cans, they're a little bit, I don't know, they tend to glob too much, put too much on. They're less control. Yeah, that's a good word for it. But I use it on my interior components sometimes. So, let's see, shelf life, unopened, 10 years, question mark. Like I said, I got the Pullman stuff, I got that back in, I don't know, 2005, 2006. So it's getting close to 20 years old. If you open it and the lid's not tight, it'll last 2 days. The lid's tight, maybe 3 or 4 years. I've got some Model Master paints that I've had for a long time that I've probably used them 10, 15 times, open them up, brush paint, airbrush them. And then the last time I opened them up, half a jar of paint solid as a rock. That happens. So, thinners. Yeah. It's extremely important for thinning and cleanup. It must match the paint. Acrylic can be often thinned with water. Check first. Some use acetone. They say right on it, use acetone as the thinner. I got my big can of scale coat paint. If you're just starting out and your wife's got some nail polish remover, you can steal out.
I was gonna mention that I don't volunteer mine. Because then I have to go buy new.
This ran out a long time ago and she hasn't replaced it. So.
That's okay.
She
You go to a
hasn't
place like Fred Meyer or hardware store, you can get a whole can of acetone.
Yeah.
I've got one outside that I use, yeah.
And lacquer thinner too,
Yeah.
and other things like that.
Okay.
Mia's IPA, isopropyl alcohol for
Okay.
Tamiya.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah, very well.
Okay. I've got some Tamiya thinner, so I mean it.
And it should also work on the model color.
Okay.
The
Well, you can try it out first, but you know, I try to find the right thinner. Yeah.
Somewhere in it, where it was that, for like some commercial paints or something like that, you open the lid, they've got a spray nitrogen that you can put it in the bottle, give it a squirt, and then it seals it.
Haven't heard of that.
Because the oxygen doesn't have anything to react with.
Huh.
It's the oxygen out of it, yeah.
Do you need-
I've seen small cans in it somewhere,
Huh.
for just that. Just give it a little squirt and put the lid back on tight, it lasts longer.
Yeah, okay. Note, once paints are thin, they can often be saved in a sealed jar for future use, just not 10 years in the future. If thinned with acetone, sorry, that's to be discarded. I mentioned that earlier. Safety tip, most thinners are volatile. That's usually what you smell when you paint. Any questions on thinners at all? Or on paints? Yeah.
I just want to mention a couple of other brands. Over at Hobbytown USA, I found one called Mission, I think it was Mission Model.
Mission Models.
I've
They're
seen it.
mostly military colors, but there are some weathering colors, and I believe they have a rail brown as well. And the other, they're pricey. They're geared toward the Warhammer thing, but Citadel paints, some of them are airbrush ready now, and they also have some colors that can be suitable for weathering. They even have some texture types. So I don't think those would work too well in an airbrush. That can be used for that sort of thing. One that I really want to try that I've bought and I haven't tried it yet is called Nuln Oil, and that might be useful for us.
Could you spell that out?
N-U-L-N.
No.
Yeah.
It's a black wash.
Oh, black wash,
There you
okay.
go. So you're familiar.
Yeah, okay. That could be
So,
useful.
so some of those colors, there are a lot of really weird colors, but of course it's a really weird set of game systems. But again, you can find some weathering and weathering stuff in that one.
The best thing is to try it out. Get, you know, you got an old boxcar or something.
Yeah. 'Cause some of them are washes, some of them are highlight colors, and so on.
Primers. I like solvent paint best. I don't remember, these two boxcars were primed. I don't know if it was this can over a can I got out in the shop that I use for priming my floor weights for my production stuff. But I usually just shoot them with gray. It's best to spray the primer over the model first. It helps cover defects and old lettering, makes it easier to monitor the coverage. You don't have to worry about it, especially if you've got a two-tone paint and then big heralds or something on a car, it'll show through. With your primer, it'll help dull those down so you don't see them. Use a different colored primer than your color coat, for sure. Gray primer is typical. Enamel and a spray can be used. Gray model paint will work. If you take like Southern Pacific Gray or something and use that as a primer, your model paint, that'll work. Then paint red over it or orange or whatever your colors are. You might choose a red primer for certain colors and black primers for certain other colors. I know painting a car, it matters what color of primer you put underneath it, depending on the color you're painting, whether it's metallic. I don't think model train cars are quite as technical. I use gray primer for almost everything. So, anything else on that?
I know the toughest color I found, of course, is yellow.
Yeah.
Do you usually use a gray primer for that?
Let me think. It's been a long time since I painted anything yellow.
Mark, that means yes.
Gray primer? Okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah, gray primer underneath yellow, because yellow is a very difficult color to paint. And I read somewhere where the gray is the right shade of primer for yellow.
The other thing is,
Stylo Res makes a yellow primer. Stylo Res is one of the best.
Scarlet Res, yeah, that's a Badger product.
It's a Badger product, but it's almost impervious to
Yeah.
sanding, trying to take stuff off and so on. It comes in about 12 colors.
What's it called?
Stylo Res, S-T-Y-N-L-R-E-Z.
I'll write that up and put it in the newsletter, because that's, yeah, good stuff.
another paint that's difficult is orange. It seems like the orange they've got is safety orange, that's it. And if you're like Chicago, Eastern Illinois, they had an orange stripes on their blue cars. It's one hard color to try to match. Other colors may be like Rio Grande stuff, might be tough to match too. Anyway, okay, a little bit of procedure before we go out and actually do it. Disassemble and wash the model. Plain water, yeah. Soap leaves a residue.
Dishwasher right, John?
Now, this is for plastic. If you're doing brass, that's a whole other set of
For
things.
cleaning the cars, dishwasher.
Brake fluid to remove old paint, question mark. I've heard that works. I've never tried it myself. You might have to experiment with that if you think that's for another clinic. Check the
Did you say brake fluid?
brake fluid to remove. A lot of the paints, the lettering paints are thick, and you try to sand them off, you leave sanding marks. And you paint the side of the car anyway, and the old Union Pacific is still in there in big bold letters. You look down the side of the car at an angle, and you no longer see Denver and Rio Grande, you see Union Pacific bolded, you know. So it's an issue with some thick lettering.
It works, brake fluid.
Yeah.
You just have to remember to put it back in your car.
Does paint clog up the brake lines?
Yeah, that's another
You
problem.
just can't get the box car to move.
Be sure to allow the car to dry overnight. You know, don't wash it and then 5 minutes later go out and grab a paint gun and start priming. You might get water someplace. Then you spray on the primer and allow that to dry 24 hours too. Mix the paint, strain with the cone filter. I did that with cars, automotives, all the time. I never have with this. I've screwed up. I've got lumpy paint and plugged my spray gun a couple times. I'd recommend it, but I can't find a cone small enough unless I maybe go to some of these hobby shops or something. They might have something. I've just never searched it out. I just made sure my paint was clear, you know, thin enough, and then thin it down. And but hey, you know, if you're really concerned about it, find a cone with a strainer in it and put your paint through that. That's recommended. Test the spray pattern on cardboard, thin more if necessary. I've got a cardboard out there, you can see me, that I got sprayed quite a bit. I spray one tack coat over the model, allow it to set up 5 minutes, spray the final coat from a different angle. I usually angle up for the first coat, and angle down for a second coat, and I'll show you a good reason why. Let's see. I'll get close here. Can you tell what color the car was originally?
Not really.
Oh, look right here.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. Okay. Let's show a little close up here. Right there, you can see. I don't know if you can see much here. I sprayed down, and there's orange underneath the grab irons and stuff over here underneath. Okay, you may not think that's important, but it's on a high line going over there. You look at, oh, I got blue sticking out from underneath my yellow car. Why is that? Okay, so I try to shoot up first, let it tack off, and then I shoot it down. Allow 24 hours, 2 coats, and then 5 minutes later, another coat. Allow it to 24 hours before recoating or decaling. If you do a good enough job, that should be it. I've had time when I come back the next day, oh, one end is really light. It just, I must have shut the paint gun off too soon before I got there. So I've had to mix up the paint again and shoot that corner again. 6, gloss paint versus flat coat. Some modelers wish to gloss coat their passenger cars. This is to help hide the decal film. This should be done 24 hours or more before or after the color coat. Some modelers prefer to gloss coat models prior to adding decals. I said that already. Then they flat coat it after the decals. It works. I've done it. The only drawback is you get a 6-inch layer of paint. Get all those different layers on there. Gloss coat products tend to be thick, splatter, and run. And when I ran out of my Flocal gloss coat, I tried others, and I don't like them. I still got the cans in the house. Haven't used them for 10 years because I don't like it. So I use just, I paint, and then I decal and use dough coat or something over the top, and I've had good luck with it. So, yeah.
I've heard that some people use future floor finish. It might have a different name now, but it's clear acrylic, and it does airbrush, I'm told, and they use that for a gloss coat.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
And you can paint over that.
I've used it to install windows in my passenger cars, the glass, right in the, you just take a brush and wipe it around the window frame and put the glass in and hold it in there for a minute or two. And it glues the glass in and it dries clear. So
If you've got an old bottle, you're lucky. They have a new formula for future.
I got a half.
That doesn't work as well.
I've got a half a bottle left in the basement. Don't tell my wife, she likes to use it in her kitchen.
Yeah, well, just
But he got it from me in the first place.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Poke a hole in the bottom of it.
Oh, one other question, one other comment. This is more or less, yeah. Roof walks. If you got old wooden roof walks, this happens to be great. Wooden roof walks were not painted. They're bare wood. After a while it turned gray. So you might have a beautiful red weathered boxcar or blue, black, whatever color, but the roof walk will be wood. Now the grate, the metal grates, I prefer to paint them gray, even though whatever the roof color is, because it looks like steel. And then I weather them sometimes, put a little white on there, or a little black or something. You know, those guys always got coal dust on their boots when they walk across the roof and leave it on the roof walk. So. But I want to comment on that. My cars here are all gray on the roof and everything, and I took that one off thinking I would show you that you take the roof walk off if you can.
Mark, are you going outside soon?
Yep, we're going outside soon. Mask it off because it's got gray on the roof and ends, and I go over the masking tape to make sure it's sealed because the air pressure will move it. And this one's moved. So. Otherwise you'll get overspray. And that's not the prototypical. The real railroad never oversprays. And I like Tamiya tape. Somebody here at one of these clinics gave me the hint on that. Okay. Oh yeah, you got my stir stick. This is something that people say don't do, because it'll get crusty on there and it can leave blobs in your paint. So I'm gonna make
Whatever works.
whatever works. The stir stick, I've got them in there, but
I must have that mix of plastic and
Oh, yeah.
okay. Pouring that out straight. I've got, that says scale coat, thinner. I don't know how much I'm going to need.
Ooh, let's go back in there.
I'm going to put a little dab in there and see.
Little dab will be.
Yep. Okay. Nipple back. Thanks, go in. There we go. Okay, start her up and see what happens. With the boxcar open, the door open.
Mark, it would help if you stood this way because nobody can see what you're doing.
Okay, well, that's what I thought people would be behind me.
Watch you spray right again.
Okay, start her again. I'm going to go do the other side.